Hi friends, from today onwards we'll discuss the theories on organic evolution or simply the theories on evolution. This topic is mentioned in 1.4 chapter of paper 1 of our syllabus. Before going into details of this topic, first of all we should know what is meant by evolution. Evolution means simply a change. In our biology, evolution involves the production of advanced life forms from primitive life forms. Life forms means they can be plants or animals. During the process of evolution, advanced life forms are produced from primitive life forms. Once upon a time, only single celled animals were there. From single celled animals, multicellular animals came into existence. Gradually, over a period of time, most advanced animal came into existence, that is nothing but human beings. This way, during the process of evolution, there is production of advanced life forms from primitive life forms. During this process, these primitive organisms, they made their structures more complex. They made the organs of their body more complex to fit well in the environment. That's why their body structure has become more complex. That's why during the process of evolution, complex life forms were produced from simple life forms. That's why we can define the evolution in two perspectives. One is with respect to advancement. Second one is with respect to the structure. It is the process of production of advanced life forms from primitive life forms, or it is the process of production of complex life forms from simple life forms. During the process of evolution, there will be changes in our body parts and organs. Whenever there are changes in the body parts and organs, automatically there will be change in the entire organism. Am I correct or not? That's why the theories on organic evolution or the theories on evolution all are same. For your understanding, please remember that evolution involves the production of advanced life forms from primitive life forms, or it is the production of complex life forms from simple life forms. Most of the times, in this manner evolution takes place. Sometimes there can be exceptions. They are not required for you. This much of understanding is sufficient. Now, if you go into details of our syllabus, in our syllabus, the theories on organic evolution are divided into three groups. They are pre-Darwinian theories, Darwinian theory, and post-Darwinian theories. Number of biologists propose number of theories on organic evolution or simply evolution. Out of all those theories, Darwin proposed natural selection theory, is also called Darwinism. That theory marks a significant milestone. That's why all the theories on evolution are divided based on the Darwinism. Pre-Darwinian theory, Darwinian theory, and post-Darwinian theories. Even before the Darwin's theory of natural selection, actually Darwin proposed his theory in the year 1859. Even before that, in the year 1809, Lamarck proposed one theory to explain the process of evolution. But Lamarck theory faced a lot of criticism. After that, Darwin proposed natural selection theory, which has become very popular. Even today also, we are accepting the natural selection theory of Darwin with some modifications. That's why all the theories in organic evolution are divided into three categories. They are Darwinian theory, pre-Darwinian theory, and post-Darwinian theories. There are a number of theories in post-Darwinian theories. Neo-Lamarckism. Even after the popularity of natural selection theory of Darwin, some people wanted to support Lamarckism. They tried to make Lamarckism as a successful theory by making modifications to the Lamarckism. That is nothing but Neo-Lamarckism. Actually, this theory was evolved gradually over a period of time. That's why it's not possible for us to tell a particular year as the year of proposal of this theory. In 1880s, some people started modifying the Lamarckism. Later, in the year 1901, Hugo de Vries proposed a theory that is called mutation theory. Later, number of modifications were made to the mutation theory of Hugo de Vries, that is called modern version of mutation theory. Now, by incorporating the modern developments in the field of genetics like Mendelism, the Mendel's laws of inheritance, and the findings because of the developments in the field of molecular biology. That means discovering the structure of DNA, expression of the gene, all those things. Our biologists made modifications to Darwinian theory that is called Neo-Darwinism. It's also called modern synthetic theory. These are the different theories on organic evolution, but in our syllabus they classified like this. Pre-Darwinian theory. In pre-Darwinian theories, only one theory is there, that is nothing but Lamarckism. Darwinian theory and post-Darwinian theory. In due course of time, we are going to discuss number of theories. All the theories come under the category of post-Darwinian theories. This is about the overview of the theories on organic evolution. First, let us discuss Lamarckism. Even though Lamarckism proved to be wrong, first of all, we should know what was proposed by Lamarckism, how he tried to explain the evolution, because he made the first attempt to explain the process of evolution. That's why we should know the Lamarckism also. First, let us discuss Lamarckism. The theory of Lamarckism consists of four principles. They are internal urge and tendency to increase in size. Second one is environmental change. And new needs. Third one is use and disuse. And the fourth one is inheritance of acquired characters. These are the four principles of Lamarckism. First one is internal urge and the tendency to increase in size. Second one is environmental change and new needs. Third one is use and disuse. And fourth one is inheritance of acquired characters. According to Lamarck, all the organisms or life forms, they can be plants or animals, have the tendency to increase in size. Not only the organisms but also the organs of those organisms. All the organisms, that means all the plants and animals, have the tendency to increase in size. That tendency will be realized upon internal urge. Whenever we develop that internal urge, that tendency will be realized. In your childhood also, you might have come across one desire. When will I become adult? When will I become adult? Like this. I developed that desire. Similarly, you might have developed the same desire. According to Lamarck, all the animals and plants have the tendency to increase in size. That tendency will be realized upon internal urge. This is the first principle of Lamarckism. And the second principle is environmental change and new needs. The plants and animals, they survive in this environment by adjusting with the environment. Whenever there are changes in the environment, the plants and animals develop some modifications in their organs or structures in order to survive in this environment. That's why whenever there is change in environment, definitely the plants or animals develop new needs. What is that new need? Survival. That's why to meet those new needs, certain organs will be used excessively and certain organs may not be used at all. The organs which are put to greater and constant use will develop very well, whereas the organs which are not used or which are used to a lesser extent gradually decrease in size and finally disappear. Well developed organ or a reduced organ or disappeared organ, all these are acquired characters. If my hand develops very well, this is an acquired character. In due course of time, if this hand decreases in size, that is also an acquired character. That organ with a decreased size or the organ with increased size will be transmitted to the next generation. And in the next generation also there can be some changes. Like this, because of the inheritance of the acquired characters, after some time there will be accumulation of number of characters, because of which there will be production of entirely a different animal or plant. That is nothing but a new species, a new variety of animal. That's why he said that, Lamarck said that, when in order to adjust in the environment, certain organs are used excessively. Those organs are developed very well. Certain organs are not at all used. That's why they reduced in size. And in some animals, they completely disappeared. Those acquired characters are transmitted to the next generation. Because of the transmission of acquired characters to the next generation, there will be development of a new species. That's why the fourth principle is the inheritance of acquired characters. He explained this theory with the help of some examples. I said that all the animals have the tendency to increase in size. That tendency will be realized upon internal urge. Whenever there is change in environment, new needs develop. In order to meet those new needs, certain organs will be used excessively. He explained with the help of some examples the principle of use, with the help of some examples the principle of disuse. First, let us discuss the principle of use. The first one is giraffe. According to Lamarck, the ancestors of giraffe were short-necked individuals with equal-sized forelimbs and hind limbs. They are four-limbed animals. They used to walk with four limbs. The forelimbs means front limbs, and hind limbs back. The forelimbs and hind limbs are equal in size. But there was depletion of grass on the land. That means environment was changed. Now they have to survive. In order to survive, a new need had arisen. What is that new need? Reaching the foliage of the lower branches of the trees. That's why the ancestors of the giraffes, who have short sized neck, equal sized forelimbs and hind limbs, they started extending the neck in order to reach the foliage of the lower branches of the trees. When they started extending the neck and the front part of the body to support the body, they started extending the forelimbs also. That's why they extended their neck and they extended the forelimbs. After some time, the foliage of the lower branches of the trees was also depleted. That's why they tried extending the neck again to reach the higher branches. And they started extending the forelimbs also. In every generation, they continued the same phenomena. That's why in every generation, let us assume there is an increment of 5 millimeters. That increment will be transmitted to the next generation. Next generation again 5 millimeter, 5 plus 5, 10 millimeters increment. That 10 millimeters was transmitted to the next generation. Like this, because of inheritance of acquired characters, gradually over a period of time, the present day giraffes came into existence. Once upon a time, according to Lamarck, the ancestors of the giraffes have short neck and equal sized forelimbs and hind limbs. But because of depletion of grass on the land, they started extending the neck and forelimbs in order to reach the foliage of the lower branches of the trees. After some time, the foliage of the lower branches of the trees was also depleted. That's why they started extending the neck and forelimbs again to reach the higher branches. During this process, there was extension of the neck and extension of the forelimbs. This extended neck and extended forelimbs, these two characters are acquired characters. These acquired characters are transmitted to the next generation. Because of a repetition of the same event for a number of generations, the present day giraffes came into existence. This is the first example given by Lamarck. Second one is webbed feet of aquatic birds. The aquatic birds, in order to survive, they have to float on the surface of the water, because they can survive by taking oxygen from the environment. That's why in order to survive, they have to float on the surface of the water. In order to float on the surface of the water, they have to propel the water in downward direction. Whenever they propel the water in downward direction, then only they can maintain their body over the water. That means over the surface of the water. Newton's third law, if they propel the water in downward direction, water will propel the body in upward direction. They started using their hind limbs. In case of birds, the forelimbs were modified to form wings. They used to move from one place to another place with the help of legs. Whenever they are moving in air, they used their wings. But in the remaining circumstances, they used their limbs for their locomotion. Here, in order to propel the water, they used their legs. In order to propel the water, they used the legs like that of oars. They started extending the fingers and they started propelling the water. In order to propel the water effectively, there should not be any gap between these fingers. But they have gap. In spite of that, they started propelling the water in downward direction in order to float on the surface of the water. Because of continuous usage of these legs, the skin fold which is there in between the fingers developed very well. That's why if you observe the present aquatic birds, you can come across one pink colored skin fold in between the fingers of the legs. That pink color is because of more blood supply. But see, in between our fingers we don't have any extended skin fold. But in case of aquatic birds, you can come across the extended skin fold. That extended skin fold, which we can see even in ducks also, is called web. That's why the webbed feet in aquatic birds is because of continuous use. Once upon a time, the aquatic birds did not have web in between the toes or fingers. But because of continuous usage of the legs for propelling the water in downward direction, the skin fold which is there in between the toes or fingers developed very well. That's why one web was developed. That expanded skin fold is called web. That's why webbed feet in aquatic birds is another example for the principle of use. After this, wading birds. Wading birds are nothing but the birds which walk in shallow waters. See, if this is one land, if there is water, shallow water body, here fishes may be there. To catch these fishes, aquatic birds, they will move. Here, for flying efficiently in the air, the feathers of the wings must be in dry condition. Now and then they come to this water body. After catching the prey, they have to move to some other place. During that moment, they have to use their wings. For effective flying, those wings must be in dry condition. But in order to catch the prey, they have to enter into water. Whenever they are carrying out the catching of prey, they have to prevent the wetting of the body. Why? Because if there is wetting of this body, automatically feathers will also be subjected to wetting. Then it's not possible for them to fly effectively. That's why in order to prevent the wetting of their body, they started extending the legs so that the body can be kept above the level of the water surface. That's why, because of this continuous extension of the legs, in order to keep their body above the level of water surface, they got extended legs. If you observe in the present day, if you observe the cranes, pelicans, in these birds come to the shallow water bodies, they catch the prey, but after some time they move to some other place. If you observe those birds, you can come across elongated legs. That is because of continuous usage. That's why elongated legs in wading birds is also because of continuous usage. And at the same time, he explained the principle of disuse also with the help of some examples. One is kiwi bird. The national bird of New Zealand. Once upon a time, the kiwi birds were flying birds. When they reached New Zealand, there was plenty of food, and that too, there were no enemies. That's why there was no need for them to move to distant places. That's why they did not use their wings. That's why in due course of time, their wings got reduced in size and they lost their capacity to fly also. That's why the reduced wings and the flightlessness in the kiwi birds is because of disuse of the wings. That is one example. Second one is limbless condition in snakes. Limbless condition in snakes. Snakes belong to the category of tetrapods. Tetrapods means four-limbed animals. But if you observe the present day snakes, they are without limbs. Even though they belong to tetrapod category, they adopted creeping habit. Because of the adoption of a creeping habit, they did not use their limbs. Because of the disuse of the limbs, their limbs got reduced and finally they disappeared in due course of time. If you observe the body of the snake on the belly side, you can come across small depressions also. If this is the belly side of a snake, you can come across two small depressions. Those depressions are nothing but the remnants of the limbs. Because of disuse of the limbs, The limbs got reduced and finally disappeared in snakes. And at the same time, in human beings, many vestigial organs are there. In human beings, we have appendix. And many other vestigial organs are there. All those organs are produced because of disuse. See, it's not the external ear. This is called pinna. It is not possible for us to move this external ear. But if you observe animals, animals can move these external ear. Why? Because we have developed advanced organs inside the ear. That's why we did not develop any need to move these external ear. In due course of time, it has become dysfunctional. In case of buffaloes, you can see large sized external ear, that too they can move them. Like this, in humans, number of vestigial organs are also produced because of disuse. All these are the examples for disuse. Because of use, certain organs were developed. Because of disuse, certain organs were decreased in size. These acquired characters, whether it is well developed character or ill developed character, they are transmitted to the next generation. Again in the next generation, some more change. Again in the next generation, some more change. Like this, because of inheritance of acquired characters to the next generation, after some generations, entirely an animal or a plant with different characters were produced. Like that, a new variety of animal or plant came into existence. A new variety of plant or animal is called one species. In that way, new species came into existence according to Lamarck. He gave more emphasis to the inheritance of acquired characters. Because of inheritance of acquired characters, over a period of number of generations, we observed the development of new characters when compared with their ancestors. That's why we started categorizing that animal or plant as a new species. That's why, as he emphasized more on the inheritance of acquired characters, this Lamarckism is also called the theory of inheritance of acquired characters. Lamarckism is also called the theory of inheritance of acquired characters. This is about Lamarckism. So far, we have discussed the theory of Lamarckism as explained by Lamarck. Now, let us analyze the Lamarckism. Please remember, not only this Lamarckism, but also many other theories on organic evolution are nothing but stories based on the experience and assumptions of the concerned biologists. They may be correct, they may not be correct. That's why, first of all, we have to listen these theories. After listening these theories, we have to analyze to what extent they are correct. What are the drawbacks in those theories? Even in our exam also, questions were asked from this perspective. Examine the theory of Lamarckism. Critically examine the theory of Lamarckism. Critically examine Darwin's theory of natural selection, like this. That's why, first of all, we have to listen all these theories. After that, we have to analyze these theories. Now let us analyze our Lamarckism. Our Lamarckism consists of 4 principles. What are those principles? The tendency to increase in size and internal arch, environmental change and new needs, use and disuse, and finally the inheritance of acquired characters. First, let us analyze the first principle, that is tendency to increase in size and internal arch. According to Lamarck, all the plants and animals have the tendency to increase in size. But it is not correct with respect to all the plants and animals. It may be correct with respect to majority of the plants and animals, but there are certain exceptions. Consider our body. In our body, there is one gland by name thymus. That thymus gland will be in good size in our childhood and it gradually decreases in size by the time we reach adolescence. That means in between 10 to 20 years of age. Say there is an exception. And at the same time, according to Lamarck, all the plants and animals have the tendency to increase in size. That tendency will be realized upon internal urge. Now, my hands have the tendency to increase in size, but that tendency will be realized upon internal urge. Now, I have developed a desire to fly like that of birds. Am I going to develop my upper limbs into the form of wings? No. If Lamarckism is correct, I should have developed these wings, but it is not taking place. That's why it is not acceptable, it is not possible for us to accept this component. That means the principle of internal urge. What is the next principle? Environmental change and new needs. Whenever there is change in environment, definitely there will be new needs. That's why there is no criticism to that principle. Now let us discuss the next principle, that is the principle of use and disuse. According to Lamarck, whenever any organ is put to constant and excessive use, it will gradually increase in size. Consider our heart. Our heart is subjected to continuous work. It starts beating when we are in the womb of our mother. It will work throughout our life. Am I correct or not? When compared with the remaining parts of our body, this heart is subjected to more work. That's why the heart size must increase. Human evolution is taking place from millions of years. Because of this continuous work, this heart size must increase gradually and it must occupy the entire trunk region. Is it happening? No. And at the same time, eyes. We are using eyes also continuously. Because of continuous usage, these eyes must increase in size. And at the same time, there must be improvement in the efficiency of these eyes. But what is happening? There is no increase in the size of the eyes. And there is no increase in the efficiency of the eyes. In fact, we are developing eye defects frequently in many people nowadays, we can see. Instead of 2 eyes, we are developing 4 eyes. Am I correct or not? Similarly, disuse. Because of disuse, certain organs may decrease gradually in size. Consider me. Because of disuse, my muscles may not be in well-developed condition. That's why in the next generation, my children must be born with a very less musculature. Is it happening? No. In the next generation, those muscles are gradually increase in size. And if they put those muscles to work, they will again increase in size also. That's why it is not possible for us to accept this principle, the principle of use and disuse. The heart, the eyes, they are not increasing in size in spite of continuous use. And inheritance of acquired character, the last principle. Consider our soldiers, they are exposed to number of injuries in the battlefield. After some time, there will be healing of those injuries. After the healing of those wounds or injuries, scars will be left behind. That is also an acquired character. If the principle of inheritance of acquired characters is correct, in the next generation, their children must have the same scars. That means the scars at the same place. Consider me, if I develop if there is one cut injury to my hand here, after some time there will be healing. One scar will be left behind. Then in my son, one scar must be there at the same place. Is it happening? No. In India, Indian women, in India, we have the custom of boring the ears and noses of women. We have been practicing this tradition from thousands of years. There is also an acquired character, boring, of ears and noses. If the theory of inheritance of acquired characters is correct, by this time all the Indian women must be with holes in their ears and nose at the time of birth itself. Is it happening? No. Consider Muslims. In Muslims, with respect to boys, they practice circumcision. Circumcision means it is popularly called as sunti. On the penis, in the front part of the penis, there will be some skin that is called foreskin. That foreskin will be cut. That is called circumcision. These people have been practicing this tradition from thousands of years. In spite of the practice of circumcision, again the children, they are born with the same foreskin. That's why the theory of inheritance of acquired characters is not correct. If you go to China, generally in our society, there is more demand for white-skinned girls or white-skinned ladies at the time of marriage. Am I correct or not? More preference will be given to white-colored females. Generally. Similarly, in China, there is more demand for women with smaller sized feet. That's why the Chinese women at the time of pregnancy, they use iron shoes because iron shoes are non-expandable. That's why if they forcibly insert their feet into small sized iron shoes, there will be compression of the feet. They are of the assumption that their children will be born with smaller sized feet. But in reality, they are not getting children with smaller sized feet. They compressed their feet by using iron shoes. But are they getting the children with smaller sized feet? No. And there is one person by name Auguste Wiesmann. He is a critic of Lamarck. He decided to disapprove Lamarckism. In the beginning, Lamarckism got very good popularity. But Auguste Wiesmann decided to disapprove the Lamarckism. That's why he did one experiment. He took mice, small sized rats. He cut the tails of those rats and he allowed those rats to survive without tails. Tailless condition was created. They survived. There is an acquired character, tailless condition. But he allowed those rats to reproduce. Again, next generation rats were produced. Again, he cut the tails of those rats. And again, he allowed them to survive and reproduce. Again, in the next generation also, he repeated the same experiment. Like this, he did this experiment for 20 generations. He made the rats of 20 generations to live without tails. Tailless condition was created. According to Auguste Wiesmann, if the theory of inheritance of acquired characters is correct, these rats must be born without tails in the 21st generation. But he got rats with the tails even in the 21st generation. That's why he said that if the theory of inheritance of acquired characters is correct, in the 21st generation these rats must be born without tails. But it did not happen. That's why he criticized Lamarckism and he disapproved Lamarckism. Then he proposed one theory. There are certain acquired characters. These acquired characters will not be transmitted to the next generation. Why? Because he explained it with the help of one theory that is popularly known as germplasm theory. In our body, number of cells are there, and at the same time germinal cells are there. From the germinal cells, next generation individuals will be produced. That's why he called the cytoplasm of all the germinal cells or sex cells as germplasm. He called the cytoplasm of all the remaining cells as somatoplasm. The changes, according to him, according to Auguste Wiesmann, the changes which take place in somatoplasm will not be transmitted to the next generation, whereas the changes which take place in germplasm will be transmitted to the next generation. Very simple. If there is cut injury here after healing of that wound, one scar will be left behind, but this is a somatic. These are the somatic cells. Somatic cells means these cells which form our body. They are not going to form germ cells. They are not going to form sex cells. That's why these changes will not be transmitted to the next generation. In the germinal cells, if there is any change, definitely that change will be transmitted to the next generation. That's why the scars of the soldiers are not transmitted to the next generation. And the holes in the ears and nose are not transmitted to the next generation. The tailless condition was not transmitted to the next generation. Like this, he explained, the germplasm theory says that the changes which take place in somatoplasm will not be transmitted to the next generation, whereas the changes which take place in germplasm will be transmitted to the next generation. This is about germplasm theory. This is not so important for your exam. This is the criticism against Lamarckism. And scientifically also, Lamarckism failed to withstand. But there is one significance to Lamarckism. It is the first theory which was proposed to explain the process of evolution, except that there is no positive point. All are criticisms only. Even though it has become very popular in the beginning, all the principles were proved to be wrong. That's why if they want to ask any question with respect to Lamarckism, they'll ask question like this. There are 4 varieties of questions are possible. First one is Lamarckism. In 10 marks question, directly they will mention like this. Whenever they give Lamarckism for 10 marks, then explain about the principles of Lamarckism. Principles of Lamarckism. Then at the end conclude, it was the first theory to explain the process of evolution, but it failed to withstand the scrutiny. That is sufficient. Explain that theory, that is sufficient. Whenever a particular concept is asked for 10 marks, examiner expects the concept. The second type of question is examine the theory of Lamarckism. I told you while discussing the second paper, in the beginning itself, examine means you have to write the salient features, after that positives, after that negatives. Here there are no positives, only negatives. That's why here you have to write those 4 principles. You have to explain those 4 principles briefly. After that, you have to write the negatives. Sometimes questions may be asked, critically examine. Most of the times, if they want to ask a long answer question from Lamarckism, this question will be asked. Critically examine the theory of Lamarckism. That means you have to write the salient features. After that, you have to concentrate on criticism. Then the fourth type of question is discuss. Discuss the theory of Lamarckism. Then also write the salient features. After that, the criticism or analysis. That is sufficient. These are the possible questions with respect to Lamarckism.